What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Unscripted. I'm going to be your host and producer this evening, Logan Landers. And join me to talk about some NCAA Week 7 previews. Of course, as always, Jay McLovin. How you doing, Jay?
I am doing well, sir. I'm doing well. Like I said earlier, man, my Astros are in it. Logan, your Atlanta Braves better do
that back, Jay. I know it was a miss. I know you slipped up, but don't.
I did. It's a 40 slip. But your Braves better do something tonight. Is it tonight they play?
Yeah, it's tonight. We're the only game on tonight.
Yeah. Y'all better do something tonight.
Jay, I still just can't believe. Just quick sidebar, real quick. I still can't believe the Dodgers got swept.
Bro, I can't believe it.
At least we've got a game so far.
Hey, listen. That Arizona team came out of nowhere, man. I don't care what anybody says.
I think what it's showing, and Dustin, I know you'll have a little bit to say about this, is that week off really does hurt. Regular season stats don't matter. And it's whoever is the hottest team rolling into the postseason that's going to get the upper edge. That's what we've seen. I mean, the majority of the top teams, in terms of record-wise for the regular season, have already been kicked out. I mean, so that's just how it's been. Anyways, Dustin, how you doing, my friend?
I am doing very well. This week of college football should be probably the best week we've had all season, without question.
Ooh. And we're starting off with a hot one here in just a second. But before we get started, if you enjoy the show, let's give us a follow on social media. You can see here Facebook at Unscripted as always. Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. It's now at ESEN Network, our brand new network, of course, Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. We'll be changing the social media handles for all these here in the coming weeks, so we'll be on the lookout for that. We'll also be updating the slide here just so you guys can see it and reflect it. Once again, we got Facebook, X, TikTok, YouTube, and on Twitch, as always, where we go live every single week. All right, guys, big one here, already starting off hot. Oregon taking on Washington. Dustin, we'll start things off with you, my friend. Who's getting this one?
Oh, this is one of the games that I've been waiting for quite some time. You have Bo Nix, who was pretty much pushed out of Auburn when he was at Auburn and is now looking like a 5-star quarterback like he was supposed to be when he was at Auburn. You have Michael Penix, kind of the same story. He was kind of pushed out of Indiana, although he did have some injury concerns at Indiana with shoulder injuries and a torn ACL, and then goes to Washington and is now playing at a level that we haven't seen that often in college football. And I've said this numerous times. I'm going to stay on the Michael Penix train, and I'm going to back Michael Penix to win the Heisman until he gets it, even though he's probably not going to get it. I'm still going to back him to get it at this point, and I think this is his coming out party. Oregon has a great defense, and this is probably the best defense that Michael Penix is going to face all season. We know what USC's defense is, and I think Michael Penix might throw for 7 touchdowns against that USC defense because they let Shedeur Sanders throw for 6 against that defense, and I think Michael Penix is a better quarterback than Sanders at this point. Oregon's defense has been, I think, the most impressive unit in the Pac-12. Everyone knew their offense was going to be good. Everyone knew their offense was going to score a ton of points with Bo Nix, but Dan Lanning has really gotten that defense to the point where they're borderline elite. And that's something that Oregon has typically not had. They've always had a pretty good defense to a solid defense, but they've never had an elite defense like they have this year. And if they are going to make the college football playoff, they have to win this game. They have to beat USC down the road, but this is probably the best chance that they have to make that college football playoff because of the defense that they have. Same thing with Washington. This is the opportunity that Washington wants, and this is the opportunity that Washington has to make the college football playoff, because once Michael Penix graduates, I don't know what they have behind him in terms of having a team like this again. I expect this to be a back-and-forth game, and I don't think anyone's going to have the advantage outside of who has the ball last. I like Washington winning 38-35, and I think Michael Penix has his first of 2 Heisman moments this year.
All right. Jay McLovin, who's getting this one, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the things that Stat Guy said, I pretty much kind of mirror those. I think it's a battle of Bo Nix versus Penix. 2 Heisman candidates, possible Heisman candidates going at it. And their numbers aren't that far off, right? I mean, I think 14 and some change for Bo Nix, 15 touchdowns and a pick. And I think Penix is right at about 2,000 16 and touchdowns and 2 picks. So I mean, these guys are pretty close together. So, but neither one of these teams has really played, in my opinion, a true team, right? So I think this is really kind of the first test for both of these programs to see where they are, truthfully, because they've all been played kind of slow or kind of soft up until this point. I think Washington gives up 365 to 255 for Oregon. So I think Oregon has a little bit better defense on this one. But at the end of the day, I think Washington's running backs, Johnson, needs to get the running game up and going early, and the defense needs to step up for against versus Knicks. They want to have a shot if Washington wants to have a shot at it. So again, I am picking Washington. I actually went 48-35. I think it will be a high-scoring game. But at the end of the day, if Penix wants to be a Heisman, this is probably the first chance that he can really prove it and cement himself as the Heisman.
All right, we all made some great points. I'm also going to go with the Washington Huskies getting the win in this one. I'll go Washington 42, and I'll go Oregon 34. I think it's going to be a good game, a high-scoring affair. And we'll see who's going to win the quarterback battle. Will it be Bo Nix or will it be Michael Penix Jr.? Going to the SEC now, Texas A&M taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. Jay McLovin, you'll start things off. Who's getting the win in this matchup?
Yeah, A&M versus Tennessee, man. A&M obviously is unranked. Tennessee is ranked 19. I got a couple of friends out there in the Georgia area that are Tennessee fans, and I hope they are very much disappointed come Saturday. Wegman versus Milton. Yeah, I think it's kind of a wash with those guys. Their numbers, if you look at their numbers, they're fairly similar. Tennessee's running back Wright, I think, does have an edge over A&M. Running back Moss, 435 to 325. So I do think that the advantage there for them is the run game, but I also think that Aggies defense, or I should say the Aggies have played a little bit more tougher competition in my mind than what Tennessee has played, and that's kind of a big difference maker for me because A&M's defense gives up 268 to Tennessee's 308. So I think they have a little bit of advantage on defense. I think Tennessee has an advantage on the running game. Tennessee averages about 46 more offensive yards than A&M does. That's primarily through the air, not so much on the ground. But yeah, man, look what A&M's played, man. A&M's played Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, ULM, and Miami. And then if you look at the other side of the coin for Tennessee, they played South Carolina, UTSA, Florida, APSU, and University of Virginia. Not exactly the most toughest of competitions over there for Tennessee. But for that, I have A&M, unranked A&M, taking it to Tennessee. And I think Tennessee falls on the upset 28-17. And I think it's just because of primarily the running game as well as the defense of A&M.
All right, well said. Stat guy, who's winning this one?
This is kind of your typical kind of classic SEC matchup that you have at this point of the season where these teams could have identical records, yet one team will be ranked 17th, 18th, and the other team will not be ranked at all. But then you can kind of make the case that in like Texas A&M's case, they may be one of the best non-ranked teams in the country that can beat anybody on a given Saturday. They have a great defense. It's just that their offense hasn't been as consistent as the defense, where even if the defense plays well, you still have those questions if their offense is going to match it. Tennessee does not have that question offensively. We know what they're going to do offensively. We've seen them do what they do offensively, but now it's more of, is their defense going to be able to continue to play at the level they played for the majority of the season outside of when they dropped that game where they completely looked flat. In terms of this one, I do like Tennessee winning just because I think they do have the better quarterback. He's got more experience because he had those 5 games last year after Hendon Hooker went down, so they kind of were able to change the offense to fit his style last year a little bit, and now they're kind of fully incorporating his strengths compared to what Hooker's strengths were last year, and They may not be as explosive as they were last year, but they're still a very good offensive team. I like Tennessee winning 35-24.
If I'm Jimbo Fisher, you better hope you win this game. Because, man, they expect big things out of him at Texas A&M. And so far, haven't really lived up to it at this point. Like I said, they 4-2 on the year. Those 2 losses, as Jay mentioned, came to Miami. They gave up 48 points in that one. They lost to Alabama last week, 26-20 in that one. So Texas A&M, they got to have a bounce-back game. Meanwhile, for Tennessee, we know they had the tough loss to Florida, just kind of an ugly game, but they did come back, win 2 strong games, as Jay mentioned, against UTSA, and then they beat South Carolina single-handedly last week, 41-20. So A&M's coming off a tough loss. Meanwhile, Tennessee, they've got a little bit of momentum. So I am going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers, keeping that momentum, going to a 3-game win streak in this one. I'll go Tennessee 34, and I'll go Texas A&M 28 in this ball game. All right, up next, USC Notre Dame. Jay McLovin, kick things off, my friend. Trojans fighting Irish.
Yeah, this is going to be, I won't say it's an easy game, but USC is definitely going to take it to Notre Dame. USC, Caleb Williams, the way he can run, the way he can throw. I mean, he doesn't throw as good as I think it's kind of, he still needs to work a little bit on the throwing, but the guy is 18-22 on the yardage, 22 and only 1 pick. I mean, 1 pick. I mean, that's pretty damn good if you ask me. 124 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. The guy is very, very universal compared to Hartman at 17, 12, 16, and 3 turnovers or 3 interceptions. I like Hartman. Don't get me wrong. I've been praising him all season, but I also have been pretty high on Caleb Williams as well. So I think for that factor, if you look at the run game, Lloyd has 67 attempts at 519 yards and a touchdown, or 4 touchdowns. 519 and 4 touchdowns. And then if you look at ETM, however you say his name, he's got 105 yards or 105 attempts for 692 yards and 7 touchdowns. That means that Lloyd is averaging more yards per carry than ETM is. So for that reason, of course, if you look at the total yards at 523 to 437 in favor of USC, and then also the yards allowed, that's where it kind of gets interesting to me because USC is giving up 421 yards, and Notre Dame is only giving up 279 yards. So for me, the key to this game is Hartman's got to be on point and not turn over the ball. ETM has to run a little bit better than what he has been running. And most importantly, that defense has to continue to do what they've been doing and not give up a whole lot. And let's be honest, Notre Dame, they got a tall task with Williams and Lloyd and company. That's a lot to ask. But I think if they want to do it, they have to control it. But at the end of the day, I just think USC is going to be way too much for them. And I think it goes down 28-20.
Ooh, okay. All right, Stat Guy, are you going to second that or are you going to change things up?
Well, like you said about Jimbo Fisher, if I'm Marcus Freeman, I better hope to God I win this game. Otherwise, I think my job is going to be called into question heading into next season. You look at the expectations that Notre Dame had last year. Marcus Freeman gets off to an 0-3 or an 0-4 start to pretty much kill their season before their season even started. Granted, they finished with 9 straight wins, but that first month of the season basically ended any hopes of a college football playoff last year. Coming to this year, they get Sam Hartman via the transfer portal. They get all these other pieces that basically were supposed to give them this high-powered offense, which is something that we haven't seen before. And through the first 2-3 games, Notre Dame did look like a legitimate national title, or not national title, but college football playoff contender. And then they run into Ohio State. Look terrible. Then they run into Duke. Look terrible. Then they run into whoever they played last week. I forgot who they played last week. Louisville.
Yeah,
Looked
Louisville.
absolutely awful against Louisville. And now you're starting to see that trend that Marcus Freeman had last year when things go south. Not only does it go south in a hurry, but he does not do a very good job adjusting to things when they are going bad. He continues to do the same things over and over again, and it's like, fool me once, lucky you, fool me twice. Well, there's kind of something to be said there, and he keeps running out the same exact strategies, same exact things, even though things aren't working. The USC offense is miles better than a Notre Dame offense. but it's the Notre Dame defense that's miles better than the USC defense. And if you're going to allow 41 points to Colorado and win 48-41, but then the next week you do not play very well against Arizona, and Arizona is not a very good team, that kind of raises a little bit of a red flag heading into this game. I do think USC is going to win this game, but I think they're going to have to work for it because of that Notre Dame defense. I like USC 24-21. I don't think it's going to be an easy cakewalk for USC because this is the best defense that USC is probably going to see this season, not named Oregon.
Yeah, this one, I mean, on paper looks really good, but when you kind of really start to look at these teams, it gets a little bit tricky. Because like you mentioned, they barely beat Arizona last week, unranked Arizona. Beat them in 3 overtimes, gave up 41 points to them. And that defense, as we've mentioned in years past, guys, that Lincoln Riley defense has just never been there. It's very rare if they have a good night. But they always bail out of it, it seems, because of how talented that offense is. So it, in a way, gets a pass, but boy, if they would have lost that game to Arizona, they would have dropped a lot. So they got very lucky with that. As for Notre Dame, you did mention, Dustin, that coming into the season, they were off to a hot start, won 4 straight. But those were against, teams that they should have beat single-handedly and should have beaten very well, which they did. But then, like you mentioned, they lost to Ohio State. Close game in that one. We all know what happened at the end. Then they barely beat Duke by a touchdown. And then they lost last week to Louisville in a game a lot of people picked they would win, 33-20. So I'm going to have to go with the USC Trojans getting the edge in this one. I just think their offense is going to be better than the Notre Dame defense. But it's kind of a toss-up with this one just because, as you guys mentioned, if the USC offense versus the Notre Dame defense and it's the Notre Dame offense versus the USC defense. I mean, so you definitely have a strong and a weak point for both these teams. And we'll see which one's going to prevail this upcoming weekend. So once again, with that being said, USC Trojans get the win in this one for me. Give me USC 36 and give me Notre Dame. I'll go Notre Dame 30. I got to be in a little bit of a closer game. All right, up next on the docket, Miami and North Carolina in the ACC. Dustin, I'll let you start things off with this one.
Well, to see Mario Cristobal have a job is, I think, the bigger shock to me than this one, especially after that decision that he made last weekend against Georgia Tech. He may be the only coach in NCAA history to make that decision, where all you literally have to do is kneel the ball and you win the game, but yet you hand it off, you fumble, and then the next play, Georgia Tech goes over the top, throws a touchdown pass, game over, and pretty much any hopes of your ACC title hopes have now gone out the window because you want to be the Brandon Staley of college football and call a stupid play. Georgia Tech is not North Carolina. North Carolina is a much better team and is going to be a much taller task for Miami in this one. And the one thing that North Carolina has done a lot better this year is play defense. You saw last year they were winning games 48-45, 42-38, and just pretty much Drake May had the ball and all you were going to do was try to outscore you, which, again, they can do that this year because they still have Drake May. They still have those pieces in place. But Mac Brown made it a point to change out his defensive coordinator. He made it a point to kind of focus on defense, and it's showing. They are a much better defensive team this year. And with Clemson looking like they are going to be out of the ACC title picture this year, just considering they already have, I think, 2 losses in conference play, and they basically need to win out and get a ton of help from everybody else. I think this conference is going to come down to Florida State and North Carolina at the end of the year. North Carolina is just a better team. They have a better quarterback. They have a better coach. They have a better offense. Miami might have the better defense, but I don't think it's going to matter anyways. I think North Carolina wins this one 35-21.
Jay McLovin, who's winning this from the Hurricanes or the Tar Heels?
Yeah, I'm going to go differently on this. I got Miami taking the win, and I got it being 30-21. And I think it's for those reasons that or a couple of reasons that Dustin had mentioned. It is Van Dyke versus May. And May is a better quarterback, but Van Dyke, he's not that far behind. If you look at it, you're only looking at about a difference of 300 yards advantage to May, and you're only looking at, and if you think about it, they both have 4 interceptions, but Van Dyke has 4 more touchdowns. Now, you can also say, well, Jay, North Carolina does run the ball a lot, and some of those touchdowns have been absorbed on the run game. And you're right. Hampton has 7 touchdowns to Parrish's 4 touchdowns for Miami. So, yeah, they for what they lack on the receiving touchdowns, they make up for in the running touchdowns. However, and a comma, I love Miami's run defense. They only average the opponents only are averaging 58 rushing yards against Miami. And when that's one of your primary strengths is your run game for North Carolina, and Miami has a damn good run defense, that could be a problem. When you look at it, the yards on offense is roughly the same, 505 to 500. So both teams are averaging about the same amount of offensive yards. But defense wins championships. And at this point, 268 is what Miami is allowing to North Carolina, allowing 335. And neither one of these teams or neither one of these schedules are any better than the other. I'm going to go Miami on this one, and I think it's going to be an upset, Logan. And I think it's going to be 30-21 Miami.
That certainly is an upset, Jay. This could be a good matchup only because Miami wants to just get that bar of soap and wash that taste out of their mouth from that absolutely wild ending that happened last week. Meanwhile, for North Carolina, in recent history, guys, they have had the Hurricanes number since Mac Brown's came back as head coach, or since he's been the head coach for North Carolina. They've won all 4 meetings. But most of those are close games. 3 of those 4 wins were by 3 points or less. And I kind of see this one going down that same route. You mentioned it's going to be a good quarterback battle with Van Dyke and with May. Jay, you mentioned the defenses as well. And for me, I'm going to give the slight edge to the North Carolina Tar Heels. They've been off to a very good start this year. I see that continuing. But I do think that Miami will put up a better fight and hopefully a better coached game. But I think in the end, Mac Brown and the North Carolina Tar Heels will get the win in this one. Give me North Carolina 27 and give me Miami. I'll go Miami 24. Why not a 3-point ball game in this one? All right, and the final game we have up, UCLA Bruins taking on the Oregon State Beavers. Dustin Reese, kick things off for this final game preview, sir.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the college football committee is kind of regretting disbanding the Pac-12 at this point.
Ooh.
Because you have Washington, top 10 team going to the Big Ten. Oregon, top 10 team going to the Big Ten. USC, top 10/top 5 team going to the Big Ten. UCLA, top 25 team going to the Big Ten. And then you have the other teams that are moving to the ACC and or the Big 12 and other places, leaving Washington State, California, Stanford, and Oregon State without homes for next year. Well, sure thing. You have Washington State, who was a top 15 heading into last week, and you have Oregon State as another top 15 team. So of that conference, I believe you have 8 teams in the top 25, and 6 of those 8 teams are in the top 15. To me, that doesn't deserve to have a conference disbanded. But it is what it is at this point. The conference is going to be gone after this year, and that's kind of why I've actually spent a lot more time watching Pac-12 football this year, because it's going to be the last Pac-12 championship we see. It's going to be the last time there's a Pac-12 champion. It's going to be the last time there's a Pac-12 championship game. And that has further implications down the road, and I think you guys know what those implications are.
That's it. I mean, you're not wrong.
The Rose Bowl always has a Pac-12 champion or the team that finished the next highest if that Pac-12 champion is in like the college football playoff. And they always play a Big Ten team in the Rose Bowl. What happens to the Rose Bowl now without a Pac-12? How do they determine who gets that Big Ten champion / next Big Ten team down the line if there's no Pac-12 conference, which is where the 2 teams came from?
That's good. That's a great point.
That, to me, I think is a bigger issue in terms of disbanding the Pac-12, because now you pretty much put, in my opinion, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but in my opinion, you took the most iconic bowl in the entire bowl series, and now we put it in jeopardy because you want to get rid of this conference and make a super conference.
Just quick thoughts. I think you're right. I mean, if you know college football just even a little bit, you know what the Rose Bowl is. Jay?
No, absolutely. 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 I'm sorry. I lost my place with my notes.
Yeah, I'm gonna before you go, Jay.
Let him give his final score here.
Yeah, before you go, Jay, I'm just gonna pick Oregon State to win this game, 37-21. I like them a lot more than USC, mainly because UCLA, mainly because UCLA, I believe, has a freshman quarterback right now starting, or like a redshirt freshman that's still kind of learning that system now that other quarterbacks in Baltimore now. So I think he's going to go through his growing pains. And Oregon State's a tough place to play. We've seen that in the past when Oregon's gone there and several other ranked teams have gone there and have gone down.
That's a good point. All right, Jay, who's winning, the Beavers or the Bruins?
Yeah, absolutely. God, man, this must be the week I'm going against all you guys. I got UCLA taking it. 27-20 is where I'm looking at right now. Yeah, I think it's Moore versus Ukulele. Is Ukulele, is that the same dude that was
Maryland?
His brother or whatever it was played for Clemson, right?
Mm-hmm.
DJ Ugalele was at Clemson.
Oh, no, he was the guy. Yeah, sorry.
And then he transferred out of Clemson to Oregon State.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
From St. John Bosco.
But they both have thrown 4 picks. Ukulele has thrown for a little bit more touchdowns, but man, yeah, I'm starting to regret that. I don't know. I mean, UCLA has a good defense though, 254 to 325, and they do have a slight edge even in offensive yards. They just found 459 to 449. I think the advantage goes to their run game. So I'm going to stick with it, man. I'm going to stick with it. Martinez is giving you 90 carries at 586, and Steele has gone 71 carries at 413. So that means that Steele is getting more yards per carry. And man, I'm going to stick with this. I'm not going to backtrack. I'm going to stick with it. I think it's going to be the defense and the run game of UCLA taking it to the passing game and lack of defense on Oregon State. So I got UCLA. And I got 27-20.
Okay. All right. For me, this is a really close matchup here. I mean, you look at these two squads right now. UCLA is ranked number 18 in the country. Oregon, a little bit in front of them at 15. So this has got some competition in the middle level of the AP Top 25. But looking at this game, I think it's going to be a good one. I'm going to go with Oregon State getting the slight advantage of this one. Give me the Beavers getting the win in this game. I'll go Oregon. I'll go be a lower scoring affair. Give me Oregon 24, Oregon State 24, and I'll go UCLA 17. I think it's going to be a good matchup all in all, and I'm excited to see some more football this upcoming weekend. As always, Jay McLovin, Dustin Reese, it's a pleasure working with you guys, talking some sports each and every single week. I've been your host and producer this evening, Logan Landers. Enjoy the rest of your nights, everyone. Go enjoy some football this weekend, and we'll